price of your greed is your son and your daughter. What you gonna do when there's blood in the water? Look me in my eyes, tell me everything's not fine. All the people ain't happy, and the river has run dry. You thought you could go free, but that system is done for. If you listen real closely, there's a knock at your front door. We'll never get free, lamb to the slaughter. What you gonna do when there's blood in the water? The price of your greed, your son and your daughter. What you gonna do when there's blood in the water? When there's blood in the water.
What is going on? Welcome to Ryder Mains Fishing. My name's Ryder Mains, and this is episode 1 of the transition. Today I want to go over my practice for the Toyota Series on Kentucky and Barkley Lake. Going into this practice, I knew it was going to be a pretty tough tournament, probably my weakest tournament of the lineup for this season. I've never fished Kentucky. Except for one time when I was in, I think, middle school. I fished Kentucky for like 3 hours. So pretty little experience on this lake. Rigging up here. Today is Friday. I leave tomorrow, which is Saturday, the 2nd. And just wanted to go through my process going into this event on Kentucky Lake. So according to the DNR's website, the lake temps are sitting around low 50s. So obviously going into a pre-spawn event. So kind of going into this, I kind of want to approach it 2 ways: is finding a shallow bite for those fish that are maybe on secondary spots, posting up for the spawn, and then also chasing some deep fish that are very early pre-spawn. I think those could be the bigger fish. So got some stuff rigged up, like a lot of crankbaits, some chatterbaits, swim baits, a lot of moving baits. Just gonna try to cover some ground and hopefully find some fish. And then once I kind of get an idea of where I'm catching these fish, then really narrow it down, maybe slow down a little bit, and then try to duplicate that across the lake. But especially going into, I got 4 days of practice, and then going into the first 2, I'm going to spend the first day on Kentucky, and then the second day on Barkley, and I think covering water will be key, because there's a lot of water to fish, and a lot of different structure types in that lake. Going into this tournament, I was prepared to grind it out. I was prepared to pull out some finesse techniques and slow down if I have to. But being a pre-spawn tournament, I wanted to start with some reaction baits to try to locate a good population of fish. And what I did not anticipate was the sheer number of boaters that were fishing the lower end of the lake where I had planned to spend most of my practice. It seemed like just about every single spot that I tried to get on, whether it was a steeper bank or a good chunk rock bank, the type of stuff you'd anticipate for a pre-spawn tournament, there was almost always a boat on there, sometimes 2. So I either had to fish up to the spot, or I would have to wait or go find a different spot to fish. This made it extremely difficult to practice, because a lot of the times I was fishing stuff that was a little bit more subtle or a little bit more off the wall, which isn't always a bad thing, but in this case I think the fish were just extremely pressured since the majority of the field was practicing on the same part of the lake. Now, in my research, I had seen that most of the water temps were in the low 50s, and that the lake had dropped a little bit. What I did not anticipate is how much the lake cleared up when it dropped. This contributed to the extremely difficult bite on Kentucky Lake. Now, to break down my days of practice, the first day of practice, I spent the full day on Kentucky Lake, and I spent a lot of the day, to be honest with you, bouncing around with other guys, being that there were so many boats fishing the same areas I was trying to get on. Alrighty, day one of practice is complete. Only got a few bites today, but got them on that Nishini Chippewa. And this is that red craw with the blue belly. Super good looking color. Mainly just throwing it on secondary stretches and just inside secondary points. But with the fish that I caught today, I'd definitely say they were small males. So going out tomorrow, I think the key will be finding those bigger females. Now that I know where those males are staging, hopefully I can just go one step back and try to find some females in similar areas. So plan for tomorrow is to fish Barkley. We fished Kentucky today, and we'll see how that goes. Alrighty, it is day 2 of practice. See some boats launching behind me. Long idle out here from the launch here in the dam marina. We're gonna go try some stuff over in Barkley this morning, and then depending on how that goes, probably go back to Kentucky and look for some more cranking areas. So stay tuned. Going into the second day of practice, I wanted to spend the full day on Barkley, but at this point I had all my confidence in Kentucky despite how tough the day was before. Now, fishing Barkley on day 2, I only spent a few hours on the lake, and I'm not really sure why I didn't put more time in on that lake, other than in the past I had seen a lot of tournaments won out of the lower end of Kentucky. And so I think there were some preconceived notions that winning fish would be found at the lower end of Kentucky Lake, as well as just some innate dislike for Barkley when I went and fished it. It just wasn't really my lake at the time. Now, as you'll see in the videos following this one, not fishing Barkley more was actually my biggest mistake, but well, that's for another video. So after fishing Barkley in the morning, I went back to Kentucky and I tried to get on some deeper fish. I'm naturally kind of a deeper water, more offshore type of guy, very big on electronics. And so that's exactly what I tried to do. I did a lot of graphing throughout practice, tried to get away from the rest of the field that was fishing those shallow transition banks like you'd expect for this time of year. At the end of day 2 of practice, I was feeling pretty discouraged about the deeper water bite and wasn't planning on continuing to spend my time searching for that. However, at the very end of the day, I caught about a 2.5 or 3 pounder on a DT10 crankbait. That kind of led me astray, led me to think that, oh, maybe some of these better fish are out deeper. So going into day 3, I spent my time out deep again, looking for more offshore spots, fishing the ledges, the type of stuff that those fish really set up on good later in the year, but definitely wasn't the time for, at least for me, this time of year. Alrighty, one of the first ones here this morning. A little bit of a tough day yesterday. Was able to catch a good one toward the end, but overall just eliminated a lot of water. So hopefully today we can go and fish some deeper stuff this morning, and then if there's a little bit of sun today, we'll hopefully fish some docks and try to get something else going. But fishing really tough. So day 3 was a little bit of a waste. I even found this offshore spot in the mooring that I caught about a 2.5 or 3 pounder off of on a DT14. That also led me to spend the rest of my day looking for those offshore deeper fish, which was definitely a mistake, but it's one of those things you can only learn from looking back now. Alrighty, that is the end of day 3. By far the toughest day. All I can say is we definitely eliminated a lot of water. It's kind of been the theme of this practice, but I think going into the final day of practice and going into the tournament, I think it's important that even though it is fishing super tough and I'm not catching fish, that doesn't mean that they aren't biting somewhere or they aren't around. It's easy. I've been feeling like I'm missing something, but I also know that it doesn't take much to find them. And I have caught some fish over the last few days, and so I think focusing on those areas and trying to figure out where they're moving, if they're moving into the areas where I've caught smaller fish and the bigger fish are moving up into those areas, or just trying to, go fishing. But definitely a tough day. Gonna re-rig and hopefully fish a little bit tomorrow. We'll see how much we can. Got our pre-tournament meeting at I believe it's usually around 4:30. So gotta be in or off the water usually around 3 or 3:30. So probably gonna try to be done before lunch. That way I can get to re-rigging tomorrow. But yeah, overall it's been a tough practice. It's gonna be a tough tournament, but I know if we just keep fishing, keep moving, and stay positive, I know we can find them. So stay tuned for the final day of practice. My 4th and final day of practice was on Wednesday. The tournament started on Thursday, so Wednesday we had our pre-tournament meeting. So we had to be off the water at a pretty decent time. I got off before lunch. That way I could work on rigging up before the meeting. On the 4th day of practice, I spent it past the bridge, a little bit further up the lake, where there was a little bit more color in the water. There's a lot of good looking areas, but there was also a lot of boats fishing up there. It was super windy on Wednesday, so I didn't spend too much time running around looking for spots. I just kind of did some fishing to try to get some confidence and was unfortunately unable to catch any decent bass that day. So in all, a very, very tough practice. It is pretty rare for me to have a practice catching so little, but I also know that I tend to spend a lot of time graphing and looking at my electronics in practice. So even though I had a tough practice, going into the tournament, I knew that I would be able to spend more time fishing and less time graphing around. So my confidence wasn't completely gone, but I can definitely say it was a little bit shaken just because I hadn't really got on a consistent bite other than just fishing the typical pre-spawn stuff everybody else was fishing. Following this video, I will be releasing the tournament video, which is pretty wild. I was able to run my 360 camera and not miss a second of the action. It's pretty crazy. There's a lot of ups and downs, so you're definitely going to want to watch that. With that being said, thank you for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you learned something. Huge shout out to my sponsors, Royal Coatings and Wholesale Batteries, for presenting this series to you guys. I recently got a set of lithium trolling motor batteries put into my Phoenix 920 from Wholesale Batteries. The install was super clean, had no problems at all, even though it was super rough out on the lake, and I was also never able to get those batteries below 75%, which is pretty crazy because I was putting in 10+ hour days on the water. I definitely couldn't be doing this without them. So thank you to Royal Coatings and Wholesale Batteries for sponsoring this series.